Thanks for having me. Welcome to everyone. I usually stop my video while I do my presentation, but just want to assure you that I am here live and in person. Um, so what's interesting about the topic of reclaimed water is when this is all over, if you do a search, you might be familiar with it, but maybe not. If you do a search for the RLC, ARAL, you will realize that it's a body of water in Europe that, it was significant for people to do shipping on it for a number of years. And in the space of about 50 years, it completely dried up. And it was brought to the attention of actually NASA scientists because they were doing a view of Earth and saw this ship in the middle of dry land, a huge ship in the middle of dry land. And they were like, what's that ship doing there? And then they realized that the ship was actually on this water body that dried up over a period of 50 years. So this is relevant because although I'm sure we could say to ourselves, that would never happen in Florida. I'm sure the people in Europe who relied on the RLC for, livelihood also thought that that could never happen. And so using reclaimed water as an alternate water source, especially for irrigation, where studies show that irrigation comprises up to 50% of residential water use, is really important. So my name is Marguerite Beckford. I probably should have said that at the beginning, but you can see my name's there. I'm the Commercial Horticulture Extension Agent in Sarasota County, and I've been asked to give a presentation on the solutions you can explore when using reclaimed water for managing your landscape plants. So I never like to assume, because you guys know what happens when we assume. I never like to assume that everybody in our audience knows what extension is. Some people are very familiar with extension and some people are not. And so for those who are not familiar with extension, we're actually part of a big idea that was birthed in 1862. Each state has a land-grant university that's funded through federal, state, and county funds. And so if you've lived in other states, whichever state you lived in, you'll see my arrow going around here, has a land-grant university that's responsible for extending ideas to help people improve their lives. And so in Florida, your land-grant university is the University of Florida, and we are part of the University of Florida Extension. My mouse is misbehaving. Yes, okay. So what we're gonna go over, I don't have a lot of time, but what we're gonna go over briefly are our goals when we're looking at using reclaimed water for maintaining landscape plants. Our goals are improving plant health. Our goals are improving aesthetic value, and our goals are to achieve cost-efficient landscape management. So when we talked with Abby about doing this webinar, she did mention that these are some of the concerns that persons who use reclaimed water have. One is high pH, one is total dissolved solids, which we'll go into in a bit. One issue is clogged lines and heads, and another issue is snail problems. There are 4 speakers this afternoon, and so one of us will address one, if not all of these issues, and if not at the end when we open it for Q&A, you can ask additional questions. So my section, I'm going to try to stay in my lane. My section is how do you troubleshoot solutions for using reclaimed water to irrigate landscape plants. This is not turf, this is your ornamental plants. Some key parameters which may impact landscape plant health and management when you're using reclaimed irrigation water will be your water pH, the total dissolved solids or electrical conductivity, also known as salinity of your reclaimed water, and the salt tolerance of plants. So when we talk about pH and salinity, this is just an excerpt of a reclaimed water report, and different reclaimed water reports will show different things, as Abby mentioned. But it's key to note that reclaimed water with a pH of 7.02 is fine when it comes to irrigating plants. And reclaimed water with total dissolved solids of 1263 milligrams per liter or parts per million is also totally fine for irrigating plants, because salt sensitive plants require less than 2100 milligrams per liter. And we have extension documents that you can get more information on that. And I'll put links in the chat box when we're done here. So when we're looking at reclaimed water pH, many ornamental plants can tolerate a wide pH range. They thrive between pH levels of 6.0 and 7.0. And so unless you have reclaimed water that has extreme pH levels, your ornamental plants should do fine. If you're growing things like blueberries, then that's a total different issue, because blueberries tend to prefer acidic soils. Soil pH outside of the ideal range can trigger nutrient deficiencies in your plants or toxicities, and this subjects plants to environmental stress, which makes them more susceptible to pests and diseases. Monitoring your plant health and correcting for pH extremes will support optimal plant growth. And so if you have high pH, then using elemental sulfur soil ameliorants will help. And if you have low pH, then using limestone soil ameliorants will help. One thing I'll say there though is you definitely want to do soil samples before you go, trying to amend your soil. So you want to figure out, do you even have extreme pH levels? Because it does not stand to reason that, based on the pH of your irrigation water, it means that you would necessarily have soil issues. So let's look at salinity when we're talking about using reclaimed water for irrigating landscape plants. So salinity is typically measured as total dissolved solids or electrical conductivity. And that is because water is considered electrically neutral. It doesn't, if pure water doesn't have salts in it, then it won't be able to, it won't measure any electrical conductivity on that scale. Some ornamental plants are sensitive to high soil salinity and high irrigation water salinity. And then there are other plants that are categorized as salt tolerant. Depending on the level of total dissolved solids in your irrigation water, then your irrigation events can contribute to soil salinity. And one case is where you are using well water and you're on a coastal location, and we've had several issues where there's been saltwater intrusion into wells, which drastically increase the salinity of the irrigation water. So just depending on how saline your irrigation water is, it can contribute to salinity levels in your soils. So you want to look for salt tolerant plants versus salt sensitive plants, which will definitely help managing your landscape plants easier when your irrigation source is reclaimed water. And once you choose salt tolerant plants, this will minimize plant health problems. Examples include tip burn, and once you see tip burn happening, then it could be a matter of fluoride toxicity or other salt toxicity issues. And once you use salt tolerant plants, then it will help to reduce your plant replacement costs. So when we're talking about soil moisture and addressing soil moisture issues using reclaimed water, we want to look at the health of your ornamental plants. And invariable as extension agents, we will get calls and questions about plant health issues. And we always advise people that your plant health can be significantly improved if you direct the irrigation water away from the leaves and you restrict your irrigation water to just irrigating the roots and the soil. This does not apply to turf, obviously, but for your ornamental plants, you wanna stay away from overhead irrigation, because overhead irrigation increases the susceptibility of plants to leaf spot diseases. Once you get leaf spot diseases, then you're gonna have to increase your efforts to applying fungicides and chemicals to help to reduce your disease incidence. So you want to make sure that your irrigation is directed to the soil and the roots. So the third factor when we're talking about using reclaimed water to irrigate landscape plants is choosing the right plant for the right place. We looked at your pH, we looked at your salinity. If you choose moderately to highly salt tolerant landscape plants and you install the right plant in the right place, these will be key factors in helping you to reduce plant health issues and to reduce plant replacement costs. So examples of plants that are moderately to highly salt tolerant include your American holly, your red cedar, your southern magnolia trees, your Spanish bayonet, also known as your yucca, beautyberry, firebush, Simpson stopper, wild coffee shrubs, and ground cover and bedding plants include your beach verbena, your blanket flower, your dayflower, your June sunflower, and your muley grass. We have way more information than I can give you in this short space of time, but here are links to additional information for selecting salt tolerant plants. If you're going to be using reclaimed water and salinity might be an issue. And so you want to focus on using Florida friendly landscape plants, and you want to focus on applying these Florida friendly landscaping principles. And so I'm going to leave you with a reference guide here. This is your Florida friendly landscaping guide. I call it our cheat sheet on steroids. There's a PDF version available at this link, but you can also get hard copies at the extension office. The reason I call it the cheat sheet on steroids is because it walks you through step-by-step solutions for various landscape problems. And it will provide you with Florida-friendly landscape solutions. So this is just an example in the book. You can select based on the area of Florida you're in, and then you will pick, I know it might be hard for you to see here, but I'm going to try to zoom in. What I love about this guide is that the plants are broken down by large tree, small tree, all the way down to vines and ground covers. But then there's a legend that tells you whether it's high, medium, or low salt tolerant. And it also tells you whether these plants will require high or low amounts of irrigation levels. And so that's what's really awesome about this guide. And like I said, it breaks plants down from trees to annuals to ground covers, etc. And with that, I'd like to thank you. That was the speed dating version of this presentation. But here's my information. If you have questions, feel free to call, email us. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jackie, who's our moderator.